Anthony Grassi for D2 Ticker here at the 2025 NCAA Convention. Happy to sit down for the small college conversation with Ivana Rich, the Vice President and Director of Athletics at Edward Waters University. Ivana, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So one of the big things on campus is you guys are officially now a full member of Division II. What does that mean for the Tigers?
We are official. So what that means is it opens up a lot of opportunities for our student athletes and our department nationally, regionally. We now are able to compete in NCAA championships. So we've actually won some conference championships over the last 2 years and had to come back home. And so now we can actually go and compete in NCAA championships. It also opens up opportunities for us to apply for NCAA grants. And so we're actually working on 2 right now. And other funding. So our student athletes and staff are now they're now able to attend NCAA programming. So the leadership development programming, the NCAA Coaches Academy. My administrative coordinator is going to the Emerging Leaders Seminar, and so she'll be the first staff member to participate in NCAA programming. So it really opens up a lot for us. It helps us from a marketing standpoint to not only market athletics, but also market Edward Waters University as a whole.
As you look back through that membership process, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Well, going through the membership provisional process, the transition, it takes a village. And so sometimes that's the challenge. You have to have buy-in from enrollment management, from academic affairs, from student success and engagement. And so, making sure that everybody prioritizes all the things that we have to do, making sure we're taking and tying everything. That was definitely a challenge, and educating because it's new, even educating our coaches. So the coaches that had been NAIA that had no NCAA experience,
right?
Like really educating them on, okay, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, but you can do this. And so that takes time. People don't learn these things overnight. We know how thick the rule book is, but luckily we don't make them focus on every part of it. But I would say those aspects were probably the most challenging going through the process.
For those that maybe are going through the process now or will follow you through the process, what would your advice be to other ADs about going through the process successfully?
I would say make sure that you explain all of the benefits of the process early on, like before you even submit the application, because what people may not understand is that this process, it not only betters the athletic department, it will make your institution better and stronger, from a compliance standpoint, from a process standpoint. And so I think that's really critical, making sure that you are expressing the benefits, of what that process can do for the institution as a whole.
As we sit here right now, you're in year 3 as the Director of Athletics. How have maybe your expectations at the beginning differed from the reality that you've lived for the last 3 years?
Well, I knew it was going to be quite the undertaking, in terms of managing all the teams, hiring staff. And so I think just the culture and the climate of college athletics has changed. And so that definitely impacts us. Everything that happens at Division I somewhat trickles down to Division II. And so, in terms of employee retention, dealing with shortages, especially in athletic training and compliance at the D2 level, coming up with funding avenues and resources and things like that. I expected some of these things, but like those things you can't anticipate. The daily fires, they're a little bit more than I expected. But that also makes the job just that more fun.
Yeah, it's different every day.
Yeah. Every day.
Who have you leaned on to maybe continue educate yourself or say, all right, you maybe have experienced this crazy fire that I didn't expect. How did you handle that? Who have you leaned on in that process, and who maybe have you gone through seeking out people that have some different experiences that may be actually able to inform how you handle that situation?
Right. I would say I have a diverse group of people that I lean on, and I love talking to people and asking questions. And if I have I'm not insecure. I'm going to reach out. If I don't know something, even as simple as negotiating contracts, having opportunities. We're in Jacksonville, so we have a lot of opportunities to host different things. And we're really expanding on that front. And so, I don't have a lot of experience from my past positions. And so definitely leaning on other ADs, some ADs at a D1 level that experience working at predominantly white institutions, but also at HBCUs. They have different types of perspectives and experiences. And so there are quite a few that I've leaned on during this process and continue to lean on. But even also lean on other ADs in my conference because they have the knowledge. They've been there for a while, and so they can help me how to navigate, teach me how to navigate certain aspects of managing, that conference experience.
Yeah, we were talking before, some of the focuses for Edward Waters, a lot of firsts. As
Yes.
your first year as a full member of Division Two, what are some of the other firsts that you were working through highlighting, and what is maybe the impact that highlighting those will have?
Yeah, so what a lot of people don't know, we are the first HBCU in the state of Florida. When people think about HBCUs and they think of Florida, they think of FAMU and they think of Bethune, but Edward Waters was the first. A lot of people don't know that. And then we're also the first private institution in the state of Florida. And so, I think highlighting those things and getting the word out and getting people to understand who we are and the impact that we've had in the educational landscape in Florida, is really important. And I always tell people too, you know, even in the city of Jacksonville, we have JU and we have UNF, who are also great partners, but we are the only show in town in regards to college football. And we have an electric experience. It's HBCU football in Jacksonville, Florida. So really trying to highlight that. We're right there in terms of excitement. We're right there, right behind the Jaguars.
How has that being in kind of having a niche, a full, you are the person, you are the school niche for college football specifically? What does that mean? I guess, how do you leverage that?
So I think that helps us from a marketing standpoint, also from a sponsorship standpoint. People love football. And so what I do all throughout football season is I bring people in to see it. A lot of people don't even know we have a football stadium because our stadium is only 3 years old.
Right.
And so for years they played at local high schools and parks. And so now we have the show and the show is on the campus. And so, it's really helped us to bring people in, educate them, but also helped us to leverage sponsorships because people love college football. And to be able to invest in college football right here in Jacksonville, and invest in young people that are doing that here, I think it makes a big difference.
Talk about generating revenue. You guys are in year 2 of rolling out the Tiger Club. What has the impact been with that rollout, and how, I guess, successful has it been?
Well, it's been really good. It's the first of its kind there at Edward Waters, and people love to see new things. But we also are a very traditional institution, and so it's been successful. We've had a lot of people join. Our coaches bought in and joined first. I probably was the first member of the Tiger Club. And so, we have other administrators, even members of our board of trustees. When they heard about the Tiger Club and I presented on it in our board meetings, they're like, sign me up today. I'll write my check right now. And so it's been really good. And so we're actually in the process of relaunching and revamping it this year. I think assessment is really important. And so we've actually sat down working very closely with our Office of Institutional Advancement to really look at the assets that we're offering. What are the benefits and what benefits really relate or connect with our constituents. And so that's what we're doing now. We're looking at it. We've developed some things that have become really popular at Edward Waters. Like we're making a name for ourselves in certain things. And so we're putting that into the benefits package. So that's just going to increase enrollment, increase interest. And I'm excited for the direction it's going in.
You mentioned at the beginning that the balance between we are an institution that has history and we're firm in our history. We're dedicated to that. But you're also trying to lead an athletic department forward, which is a very visible part of a university. How do you balance those two?
So I'm a super progressive. And so I think communication is key, really sharing with people why we're doing these things. Sometimes people think, okay, you're in the position, so you make decisions, you don't have to explain. I think it's really important that your alums, your student athletes, any of your internal and external constituents know why you're doing these things. What are the benefits? That's kind of back to that NCAA where I was saying about that process. You have to tell them. You have to tell the story. You have to tell them why we're doing these things because that helps to create buy-in. And so buy-in is really important. I have been very strategic about developing relationships with certain alums that have influence in different facets of the institution. It's alumni association, the young alums, older alums. So I got a person everywhere, and so if I, make sure that they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, that helps us to create that buy-in. And so that kind of helps with that balance. But I'm going full throttle forward.
So I'm curious with those relationships, internal constituents, external constituents. You mentioned all the time you're calling people, asking questions. How do you think about those relationships, managing those while also trying to do your job? Like the balance of making sure you're checking in with these people who can help you in circumstances, but you still have obviously a job to do. How do you, what's kind of the time commitment? What's kind of the structure of those conversations?
That's such a great question because I'm literally sitting with my administrative coordinator this morning on FaceTime, and It's like, I have to put this list together because I use a lot of sticky notes, a lot of note cards. They're sick of me. I have so many different papers. I write on anything. I'm a note taker. And so I have like, I need to follow with this person. So I think really being intentional about timing. So like for the holiday season, I also have a graphic design background. That's like my guilty pleasure. And so I designed my own Edward Waters Christmas cards that I sent out to everybody I could think of on my constituent list. These are donors, these are sponsors, these are just community partners, these are people I've met along the way that are in my business card booklet. And so I hand wrote all those cards, put my Christmas music on, wrote the cards, signed, and mailed them out. And so I think being intentional about keeping in touch, but also making reminders for yourself. So even using your calendar, your Outlook calendar, and say, okay, week 3 of February, I need to make sure I follow up with this person, this person, this person. I think games are a great opportunity, and that's something that's new. We're developing that, having that game day hospitality experience. And so making sure that we're intentional about that and strategic about that. You want to invite this group of partners on this day, this group of partners on this day. So they can come in and see exactly what we're all about. They can see our student athletes in action. They can experience the hospitality that we offer. We pride ourselves on that at Edward Waters. And so it takes time. The commitment to do it, it requires, it's not a 9 to 5. We all know that. So it definitely requires, sometimes on Saturday, I'm always out on Saturdays. I will go and volunteer with different organizations that have supported our institution. I make myself visible. I go to our local NAACP meetings, town hall meetings, and I try to be visible at different things so that people know we're not just here at Edward Waters sitting behind our desk. We're also out in the community as well.
Yeah, you're building that two-way relationship. Yes.
Absolutely.
How many people how many Christmas cards? I'm curious.
So I did about 100.
Yeah, I think.
And I think that's a start.
Yeah, for sure, but that takes a lot of time. If you're handwriting all of them, yes. Have you? I'm curious the nuance, but did you get any response from those? I'm always curious because obviously everybody sends out Christmas cards, and most of the time you just kind of get them and you put them. I don't know, have you do like
right.
Yeah,
Refrigerator.
Yeah, you put them on the refrigerator. You put them somewhere nice that's present, and it kind of brings the holiday spirit out. But I'm curious if you received any feedback from them, especially because it was so unique.
So I actually had, it made me feel really good. I had a alum, former football coach, somebody that's really involved that I sent a card to. And so he reached out to one of his former players who I'm connected to and said, please tell Dr. Rich, thank you so much for the Christmas card. I guess it made them understand we're thinking about you. You're a part of our.
You have a doctoral degree, EDD. I'm curious how, and you got that in 21.
Yes.
Right before-ish, you became the director of athletics. I'm curious how that degree maybe prepared you to become a director of athletics.
If anything, I would say the rigor.
Okay.
I did that degree while I was working full-time as an associate AD and SWA at Norfolk State. While I have a young daughter, being involved and working in college athletics full-time. And the job I had was not one of those jobs where you can do your homework at your desk. Because some people have that luxury, not me. And so my daily routine was getting up, getting myself together, getting my daughter ready, taking her to school, working a full day, and maybe sometimes after hours for games and things like that. Coming home, preparing dinner, spending a little time with my daughter, putting her to bed, and then I would do my writing from about 9 to 3 a.m. every day. And that was my routine. And that was my routine for years. So about 2.5 years. So when you talk about rigor and having that perseverance and that resilience that is necessary to be an athletic director and be a successful one without losing your mind, I think that getting that degree definitely prepared me in that way.
Has that degree maybe prepared you for what's next, like for the rest of your career, if there's other opportunities ahead?
Absolutely. My degree is a little bit unique. I have a degree in curriculum and instruction with a concentration in educational technology. So I'm a little bit of a tech geek.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I really believe in leveraging technology, especially working at smaller institutions. Like, we don't have all these bodies and hands. And so really trying to be strategic about utilizing technology. So I'm huge into AI and things like that. And so I really wanted to get that degree because if I ever decided to move out of athletics, I want to teach. I actually taught while I was at Norfolk State as well, in their School of Education. And so I think, I've kind of, that helps me to position myself if I ever needed to transition, or if I decided I wanted to move into the academic side of higher education. and being a leader on that side.
You mentioned your interest in technology. Have you, at Edward Wars, taken some steps to either advance technology? You mentioned AI specifically. Have you taken some steps there?
Absolutely.
What does that look like?
In terms of technology, so since I've been there, we've probably implemented 3 different major technologies that have helped us to increase efficiency. So we signed on with Teamworks.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was kind of a free for all operationally, and so Teamworks, we're using that for almost everything. So it's streamlining our calendars, it's streamlining our facility bookings, our compliance. We use it for compliance, our paperwork, our NCAA documents, CARA, everything. So everything is streamlined. Nothing has to be on paper. And that's what I'm always trying to explain. As much as I write, I believe everything needs to be efficiently done. Also, we signed on with Box Out to help our SID. We have one SID, we have 17 sports. And so that's a lot to do. And so anything I can do to help my SID to be more efficient and to save time, I'm going to do that. And so just really looking at different platforms that can help us to really kind of expand our staff without actually hiring another full-time person.
Right, because with limited resource institution, we can't hire all the bodies we would maybe like to.
We would love to.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely. I'm curious how you think about building or implementing the roadmap for success at Edward Waters is.
So I think it's a collaborative effort. And so I meet with my leadership team every week. And, I have the vision, but the vision is just part of it. Mm-hmm. You need the people to help facilitate the vision and bring it to fruition. And so I'm very intentional about telling my staff what's next for us. In our first meeting coming back from the new year, we all chose our one word for the year. We talked about what we're leaving in 2024 and what we're bringing into 2025. And then I talked about what my highest priorities are for the next 2 quarters. And so, some people will plan like a year out in advance. Okay, this year we're going to do this. This year we're going to do that. I like to do, I would say I believe in micro wins, really focusing in on what's next in the intermediate, and so making sure they know exactly what my top priorities are and what we need to do to get there. I also believe in creating timelines. And so if we have something, so we're getting ready to induct our first Hall of Fame class that we're aware of in April. And so we open our nominations in July. And so we post them next week. And so now we have a timeline of what we need to do to prepare for that first induction in April. And so I think creating roadmaps, creating timelines, we're really intentional about sharing what the vision is, what the goals are for this quarter, the next quarter, and the next.
As you think about some of the bigger changes that are happening here at the NCAA Convention, how are you preparing for or thinking about what the trickle down is to Division II and to Edward Waters?
So I think for me, I just try to make sure that I'm engaged in understanding what the changes are, what's to come, so that we can proactively prepare. I'm fortunate enough to sit on the D288 board for my conference. And, so I'm able to get a lot of information, sit in that space. And, we get to engage with the NCAA and with the commissioners. And so that's been very helpful in educating me. And so, I also believe in sharing wealth. And so I educate when we have our monthly ADs meetings in our conference, making sure I'm sharing that information there as well so they can get prepared. But I just think there's a lot of waiting and wondering about what's going on. But all we can do is be the best at what we do. I think that's consistent, because if we become really good at what we do and what we stand for, these things that are happening around us don't change us as much, But I think there is opportunity with some of the things that are happening, the settlements, for us to enhance our recruiting. But also I'm a little bit apprehensive about that aspect in regards to the JUCO situation. How is that going to impact if that happens? How's that going to impact our recruiting, impact our high school recruiting? So things are constantly changing. We talk about NIL. I come from Division I, and so I have a little bit more experience than my coaches and staff do with NIL. Actually, one of my student athletes was the NIL king.
Yes.
Swan Smith.
Yes.
It's my guy. And so trying to teach our coaches and staff about NIL and how we can best leverage it at our levels. Like, what does it look like for us? Because it's not going to look the same, as it would look at UF. And so just trying to be proactive and educate myself as much as I can on what's happening.
Do you have a sense of, or what do you think the market for NIL, the cap for what the maximum for it could look like for Edward Waters is?
So I just think it looks very different. I have this conversation with different people, and I just think it looks very different. You know, I guess it was last week when the Georgia quarterback went to Miami and like it's like signed a 1-year deal for this amount of money. That's like a NFL
Right.
headline,
Yeah.
you know. And I was like, that's college. I had to really look twice, and so it doesn't look like that for us. You know, for us, we're looking for opportunities for our student athletes just to leverage something. I think we are kind of in the infant stages of developing it. We've had a few NIL deals, but I want our student athletes to be able to monetize their names. And so we actually signed on with Influxer, who are doing a lot with like the apparel and things like that, where the student athletes get royalties, the institution gets royalties. And I like that model because it keeps it simple, clean. They manage everything. Because you also have to think about the compliance aspects of it.
Right.
We have one compliance officer, and to manage that with everything else, it just looks a lot different. And so that's something that I'm interested in kind of looking into more and developing more and having more conversations about like what that really looks like for us at Edward Waters.
Absolutely. I want to get chatting on this last topic, a little bit different, change of pace. You run 2 small businesses outside of your regular day job.
Yes.
Walk me through A, what those are, and B, how you manage that.
So my first one is the Rich Her Foundation, which is my own nonprofit that I launched a year ago. We just celebrated our year anniversary, and that foundation is focused on women's empowerment, essentially educating women on things that they wouldn't learn in a traditional educational setting or workplace setting. We essentially fill the gap. So we've been programming on yoga and mindfulness, women's self-defense, professional makeup, all these things, cars 101, how to maintenance and manage your vehicle. Things that women need to know to be empowered and be citizens of today's society. So that's the first one. And the other one is I am in the process of doing my beta testing for my conversational card set. And so essentially Rich Conversations is my card set. And I created it so that it would assist administrators, coaches to connect with student athletes in today's society. I used to think that was my thing. But these student athletes they're different every year. And so I created these conversational cards for us to have intentional conversations to get to know them better, to understand them better. Because if we can understand them better, we can better serve them. And so those are the 2 things I do.
And how do you balance all that?
I just do it. So I'm never not working. You know, I do most of my Edward Waters stuff during the week. Of course, we have games on Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, but on the weekends, I'm always working in my foundation. Even in the evenings, that's when I have on my foundation office at home. I hop on there and I work through those things. And so I just do. That's always been me. I have the background, and being a former Division I student athlete, you kind of learn how to just balance everything. And so I make the best out of it, and I really place emphasis on enjoying every aspect of what I'm doing.
Excellent message, Ivana. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again.